difficult times where parenting is increasingly challenging. In fact, my 22-year-old son said to me the other day, you know how each time Allah wiped away a nation, that prophet at that time had a specific challenge to deal with. And it's like this era, we have all of the challenges at once. Every single form of corruption that is available to our children is accessible to them even through the palm of their hand holding a device. This is a challenging time, and every week I'm either speaking to other professionals who are working with parents or the youth, or I'm directly speaking to young people or parents. And there's so much tension in our households. There's so much conflict going on as children are drifting away from the Deen. And parents are getting so frustrated because they're seeing their child drift away and they feel powerless to do anything. I'm seeing this week in, week out, over and over again. Interestingly, just before I came live here, I'm listening to an audiobook, which is called Persuasion. And I've only been listening to the first chapter so far, and it's talking about how we influence or how people are influenced. And it is very scary because he did a few tests on us. For instance, he was talking to us about various different things, completely unrelated. And then he asked a question: if you were going to do a vegetable patch, what vegetable would you plant first? And the first vegetable that came to my mind was carrot. And he went on to say, most likely your answer was carrot. And the reason is because I've been setting you up to think that way. And he wasn't talking about vegetables and he wasn't talking about gardens. In a minute, you'll see why this is relevant, by the way. I haven't just gone off on a tangent for the sake of it. So he had been talking about the Easter Bunny. He had been talking about being a magician and rabbits out of hats. He talked about the color orange. I can't remember, there was one other thing that he mentioned. But all of these subtle messages primes our mind in a particular direction. And it occurred to me as I was listening to this and seeing how powerful it is when you know what you're doing, that we're living in an era where there are people with this knowledge building games for our kids, advertising products. And by the way, the marketing industry targets children because they realize that they will get adults purchasing more if the children are nagging them, just so you know. So the media, the information that is coming into all of us and our children is priming us to be compliant in a particular direction. And I can assure you, it's not in a direction towards Allah. It's in a direction towards the opposite. And the next part of the chapter that he was sharing was that even when people know that they are being primed, that even when people know that they're being led, that despite that, they will still be influenced. So this story has relevance to this topic. If our children, when they're at school, and I'm not talking about specifically the teachers, but the curriculum that's been developed that most of our children are having to learn or learn from, you can be assured that curriculum is designed also to prime our children in a particular direction. And some of it may be good, but much of it will be away from Allah, subtly. Just like it was very subtle talking about the Easter bunny, talking about rabbit magicians, rabbits in hats, talking about the color orange, and then asking the question, if you planted a vegetable patch, what vegetable would you plant first? And the answer being carrot. And that is exactly what popped into my mind. Just goes to show how powerful priming is, how powerfully influenced our children are. Ourselves as well, by the way. And so the more we're allowing ourselves first and foremost to be primed by whatever is happening around us, so be aware of what we're filling ourselves with. Be aware that this, where the Prophet ﷺ said that you are the religion of the people around you, shows how those, that subtle messaging, even if someone's not intentionally priming you, they're sharing with you their values, their beliefs, and we are influenced by it, even if we consciously disagree with it. And so if we hear it enough, it can influence us. So imagine what is happening to our children. So we, their parents, have a really important role to play to be able to influence our children on the Deen. And that role isn't one of dictating, controlling, lecturing, because it doesn't work. I'll tell you why. When we use those methods to lead our children towards Islam, we basically, especially as they get older, particularly when they get older, kick up the ego in them and they push back. Just think back to when you were a teenager. Was it not exciting to get away with doing the opposite to what your parents wanted you to do? Think about that for a minute. Did you not want to push back against your parents? Whether you did or not is not what I'm asking, right? Because you might have been the good girl or the good boy that did everything your parents told you to, right? But underneath, wasn't there that pushback? I believe this is an actual important aspect of a child pushing away from the family unit to becoming an individual that is going to take the path they're taking in their life, in their journey, not to deny their family or reject their family, but to become the individual that they are, the not dependent upon the family, but becoming an adult who is responsible for themselves, responsible and accountable before Allah themselves, right? So I suspect this pushback is a natural part of transitioning from childhood to adulthood. So if we're working in that way, we are only setting ourselves up for failure and pushback, and to only end up with tension in the household. We need a different approach, and it's an approach that works. It's worked in my family and it's worked in many families, and I'll share some examples in a moment. But if we want to nurture the identity, the Islamic identity of our children, of this next generation, and if we want to influence our children to practice their Deen, we need a different approach to nagging, coercing, bribing, yelling and screaming, lecturing, ordering, controlling. A very different approach. Because if they're being subtly manipulated under the radar, we need to be under the radar giving the opposite message. And how do we do that? We do that by having a good relationship with them so that we can actually have important conversations with them, that we can actually seed ideas with them. So we had a beautiful conversation in one of our sessions last night with a group of the Back to the Fitrah mentors, and we were talking about the youth and the problems of the youth. And we were discussing the solutions. And one of the things that I was sharing with the other parents in the room, other mentors, and they were also parents, was how before my daughter reached the age that she could be, entrapped by boys' attention and their manipulative behaviors to get what they want, I shared with her how it works, their tactics. She didn't necessarily understand what I meant or necessarily believe what I was sharing with her. However, when she experienced that, where she was experiencing a boy trying to take advantage of her, the fact that I had seeded that with her meant that she suddenly went, oh, I know what's going on here. And she was able to cut it off and protect herself. So we need to be able to have that influence in our children, that we can seed for them what they can expect in life, what challenges they can expect coming their way, so that when it comes up, they recognize it. And they also feel comfortable to come back and tell us about it, because the other aspect of it was that my daughter felt comfortable to come back and tell me and said, you know what, this is what happened. And you're right. So you can't have this influence, you can't have these conversations outside of the relationship with your children. The most critical aspect of this is to have a good relationship with your children. And if your children are young, so prepubescent, it's perfect time. Build a beautiful connected relationship with them now. Time in with them. Show them how important they are to you. You don't have to indoctrinate them with everything about Islam. Demonstrate it in your actions. Demonstrate it in your behaviors, and focus on a good relationship. If you've got that pubescent and post-pubescent age group, it's very challenging, but it's still not too late. I've been through parenting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teenagers now, and my next month, my 7th teenager enters the teens, alhamdulillah. So I've been through these phases multiple times, and I've seen what works and I've seen what doesn't work from my own experience, but also in working with hundreds of parents over the last 10 years. So join me for my webinar tomorrow, Influencing Your Children on the Deen, Nurturing Islamic Identity in the Next Generation, and Empowering Parents to Influence Children to Practice their Deen. You can register for free at peacefulparentingwebinars.com. All right, just go to peacefulparentingwebinars.com or look at the description with this video. It should have the link with the description of the video that you can click on. Register, join me for free as I unpack this topic more and show you what is required in order for you to be able to be an influence of your children on the Deen. So if you are challenged with your children not praying or not dressing appropriately or having inappropriate friendships or behaving in an un-Islamic manner, not practicing their Quran, not wanting to have Muslim friends, not really identifying as a Muslim, Or if you are worried that these things might happen, I promise you there's hope. And I'd love for you to come to the webinar so I can share with you some more. We'll go through things in a more structured step-by-step way, inshallah. peacefulparentingwebinars.com. There will be a replay available for 3 days afterwards. So if the timing doesn't work for you, there's an opportunity for you to watch the replay in your own time for 3 days afterwards, inshallah. So over the weekend, inshallah. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Just checking if we have any comments. I've got a thumbs up here from Asma. Jazakallah khair, Asma. The other thing I would like to request those that are listening live and those that are listening to the replay, please share this video. This is so, so important. We are in a really critical time and we need to act now. All of us, all parents, all Muslim parents across the globe, we need to get this message as far and wide as we possibly can before it's too late. It's already looking late for many parents, but I promise you it's never too late. But as an ummah, if we get to a point that our next generation has turned away from Islam, it's going to be a hard job bringing them back. So let's work on this together as a collective, and let's start with this webinar, inshallah. So share this, share the link. If you've got WhatsApp groups you're in, or Telegram groups you're in, or Facebook groups you're in, please share this link. It's free, and it's a very important topic that I'll be sharing with you, inshallah, and unpacking in more detail. So Jazakallah khair for your time, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our next generation the better generation than us and the best generation of Muslims. Inshallah, it's possible. Let's start here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Just register. You've got nothing to lose.